Cousin! No, 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 no. I'll save you! No! Cousin, no, no, no! No, 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 no.
Hey, sorry, I didn't see you there. I'm so glad you could join me. You know, it took some time, but I think I'm finally ready to talk about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Welcome to the HR department. Please, step into my office. How can I help you today?
Well, I want to talk about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Whoa! Not so fast. Why don't you start at the beginning?
Okay, so...
The Nintendo Switch is a rapidly aging platform that has been out for many years. But through those years, we got the opportunity to see just how far they can push the system and still offer a good gaming experience. If there is one thing that the Nintendo Switch has an abundance of, it is Pokemon games. Pokemon has become one of the biggest franchises in the world and is a system seller for Nintendo. Although Pokemon is such a huge franchise, not all games have the same amount of love put into them. A lot of them are really good and fun to play, but a lot of them also make some big gameplay mistakes along the way.
Just like you.
Our first taste of Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch came in September of 2017, in the form of a port of Pokkén Tournament, released on the Wii U, which is a Tekken-style fighting game that uses a small roster of Pokemon, including Pikachu Libre, which I feel has the potential to become a mascot for the franchise, as it reminds me of another famous Pokemon, Raichu. The game showed us just how good Pokemon can look and how fluid some animations can be on the system. It might not have been the big Pokemon adventure that we were all hoping for on the Nintendo Switch, but it managed to scratch that Pokemon itch in a different way. Overall, it is a solid fighting game worth the play on the Nintendo Switch that gave us hope for what was to come next.
And how did that turn out for you?
It's fine.
We didn't get anything Pokemon related on the Nintendo Switch for a few months, but then we got a little surprise. A smaller free-to-play mobile spin-off released in May of 2018 in the form of Pokemon Quest, which was a good way to get me excited for the first big Pokemon adventure on the Nintendo Switch. In the game, you enter dungeons where your Pokemon auto-battle other Pokemon and rely on your commands to flee or use strong attacks in order to survive in battle. Pokemon Quest went on to evolve into such an awesome game, adding new features and more generations of Pokemon in every country around the world, named China. But those improvements unfortunately never made it to smaller countries around the world, where it remains non-updated on Gen 1.
Sucks to be them.
Yep.
And then in November 2018, we got our first taste of a real Pokemon adventure with the Yellow remakes, named Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. The games featured Pokemon in the overworld, along with a new catching mechanic, reminiscent of Pokemon Go on mobile. The games gave us a beautifully updated version of the first generation region, with some changes such as removing HMs, and instead, having your main Pokemon learn the abilities to overcome these roadblocks, and the fact that you couldn't battle wild Pokemon, and instead only catch them. The games had a lot of features that we've become accustomed to, removed from the games, such as held items and breeding. But overall, it was an enjoyable first Pokemon experience on the Nintendo Switch, reminiscent of the old school games, and is a type of remake I would love to see for the second and third generation games as well.
Like that's going to happen.
I'm allowed to dream, okay?
A year later, we got the first big new main entry in the Pokemon series, and no one was ready for it, especially Game Freak. Pokemon Sword and Shield was released in November of 2019 and was a disappointment for a lot of people. The game did a lot to move the series forward and there was a lot to enjoy, yet carried a lot of design elements that did not click with people. They made mistakes such as removing the national dex, using an ugly tree, having only one area in the game with camera control. I just want to repeat that, only one area in the game with camera control, having an annoying rival, half-baked gym challenges, and this part where the one guy sings but there's no voice acting in the game, so all you hear is music. The games had some fun to them, but all the bad elements weighed down the experience and left a bad impression. Animations felt unpolished, experience share made things too easy, and the overall experience felt like it took a dive halfway through. The problem was that it felt rushed and unfinished, and Game Freak decided that it was good enough.
And then they fixed some of it using DLC.
Despicable.
The DLC added a lot of wanted features and overall improved the game to a more memorable experience, adding more open areas with camera controls, more Pokemon, and a better looking tree. But it did not fix the bad experience that the base game gave us, and the impressions that we developed leading up to the release of the DLC.
If only they gave it more time.
In February 2020, everything evolved when we got Pokémon Home, which was an upgraded version of the Pokébank on the Nintendo Switch. It allowed you to transfer Pokémon stored in the Pokébank over to your Nintendo Switch and change the Pokémon games forever. As it also opened the doors to a lot of hacked shiny Pokémon, with website names being traded around.
I just want to make it clear that all 5 of my shiny Mews are legit, even though I got them at the same time.
Seems like an anomaly.
A month later, in March 2020, they released the remake of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team and Red Rescue Team in the form of Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. It is a roguelike dungeon crawler featuring Pokémon with personalities as the characters. The game has a story to follow and can be fun if you're into those types of games. It has a colorful world and an interesting looking art style to complement it. I played the demo, but never managed to get into the game as I wasn't fond of the gameplay and found the auto setting ridiculous.
Why am I even playing the game at that point?
No one knows.
Not too long after that, in June 2020, we got a free-to-play mobile spin-off puzzle game in the form of Pokémon Café Remix. In the game, you run a cafe alongside other Pokémon. You need to mix Pokémon icons together using your finger in order to make food and drinks for other Pokémon. Or something like that.
Don't ask me, I'm not a Pokémon Café Remix expert.
Noted.
The game can be fun for some. My wife likes it a bit and I did try playing it for a few hours, but the game can only be played using the touchscreen.
So no thank you.
In April 2021, a lot of Pokemon fans blew their loads with the release of new Pokémon Snap. Fans have been asking for a follow-up to the famous Pokémon Snap game from the Nintendo 64, and finally got it in one of the most gorgeous and lively Pokémon experiences on the Nintendo Switch. Unfortunately, the game plays like an on-rail shooter, but instead of using cool guns, you use a camera to shoot cool pictures of Pokemon. The game is fun for what it is, and shows off Pokemon interacting with their natural habitats. There are different routes to explore, and even alternative versions of those routes as well, for you to try and find different Pokemon who are doing different things, or are more active at different times of the day. The world feels natural, as it is never overpopulated, and rather focuses on showing off the fewer Pokemon the best it can. A few months later, in July 2021, we got another free-to-play mobile spin-off game named Pokémon Unite. The game is an online battle arena style game where you use Pokemon to capture different checkpoints and fight other Pokemon. You can buy new Pokemon, some with special outfits, using real world money.
And that's where it lost me.
There is some fun to be had with the game, but I quickly fell out of playing it as the mobile payment design choices added to the game weren't very enjoyable to me.
And I have the right to choose what I do with my body. My body, my rules.
You say so.
In November 2021, 2 years after the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield, we finally got our next big Pokemon adventure on the Switch in the form of a Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remix titled Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. The games are faithful to the originals in many ways and have a mix of graphics, switching between chibi style in the overworld and a more realistic proportioned style in the battles, just like the original games did. I found the art style strange and struggled to get into the experience, the same way I struggled with the original on the DS. It is a fun experience and features an expanded underground, but they made a fatal mistake.
They removed the battle frontier.
But you never used it.
That's not the point.
Although I don't really use features like this, a lot of more competitive players do, and now there really wasn't much reason for them to keep playing after finishing the storyline.
Removing the battle frontier was a bad move, and not long after that, Game Freak made an even worse move.
Instead of giving Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl some time to breathe and serve their purpose, we got a new Pokemon game only 2 months later. In January 2022, they released one of the best Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch to date. It came in the form of a brand new spin-off adventure that takes place in a historic version of the regions featured in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Pokémon Legends Arceus recaptured my love for the franchise and made me believe that they could create a good game. The game featured different locations with big open areas, Pokémon roaming around, environmental dangers, and even side quests.
It was almost the perfect Pokemon game.
The game had some features lacking, and it felt like they should have spent a bit more time polishing it before being released. But Pokémon Legends Arceus was a fun experience overall, giving the franchise a much needed update to its formula, and it is well worth a play if you're looking for a single player Pokémon game with more of a challenge. Delaying Pokémon Legends Arceus would not only have given them more of a gap to release a better game, but it could have bought them more time to get the next game in the series ready, as less than a year later, we got the next big entry in the Pokémon series.
Pokémon Scarlet and Violet.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. I'll see you again next week.